Okay, let's dive in. Today we're looking at a specific moment, June 11th, 2025, through the lens of, well, the day's news and updates, kind of like a SwiftNews brief, gives you that quick snapshot.
Right.
And our goal here is to sift through it all, go a bit deeper than just the headlines, and pull out what really matters, what insights you can take away.
There's a lot packed into this one day, that's for sure. Politics, economy, tech.
Yeah, sports, culture, environment, even some really powerful individual stories. It's quite the mix. So, where should we start? What does this day tell us?
Well, looking at this June 11th overview, what really strikes me is just how much is happening all at once, across totally different areas,
Mm-hmm.
and how these things often connect in quiet ways.
Mm,
Take politics and global affairs, for example. Lots going on there.
absolutely. Straight away, we see some major diplomatic activity. Indian Prime Minister Modi is in the UK for a state visit.
Yeah, and that's more than just photos, isn't it?
Exactly. The briefing material highlights what they're actually talking about. Trade, climate cooperation, tech partnerships. That's pretty telling.
It really is. It points to um, a deliberate effort, right, between two big players, focusing on issues that are just central to everything in 2025, challenges and opportunities.
Right. And then you contrast that with ongoing global tensions. The same day, the UN Security Council is debating humanitarian access in Yemen.
A really stark contrast. It just highlights that ongoing conflict, the devastating impact, the material stresses, why that debate is so critical now.
Why is that?
Well, the fighting is blocking aid, basically,
Mhm.
and that means famine risks are getting worse for millions. So alongside those hopeful partnerships, the world's still grappling with these really fundamental crises.
A crucial point. And speaking of grappling, look at the US and China. Preliminary talks are happening.
Ahead of bigger trade negotiations, yeah.
And the tone mentioned is interesting, cautious optimism about maybe easing tariffs. After all the tension, that phrase alone feels like a potential shift, right? Even if it's small.
It does. Cautious optimism.
Uh,
It probably reflects just how complex everything is. Both sides might want things to cool down, but the issues themselves, trade, tech, competition, they're huge. So progress isn't a given.
it's a delicate dance.
Definitely. And at the same time, you see ongoing support in conflicts. France is boosting military aid to Ukraine.
What does that involve specifically?
The briefing mentions advanced drone systems, intelligence sharing, which is significant because it shows how defense aid is evolving its tech and info, not just hardware.
Right, the type of aid matters.
Yeah.
And closer to home for some nations, internal efforts. South Africa's parliament pushing new anti-corruption laws.
Yeah, aimed at strengthening transparency, governance.
Why is that kind of legislation so watched in a place like South Africa?
Well, because tackling corruption,
Yeah.
improving governance, that's seen as fundamental for economic stability, for investor confidence, even social equity. Passing laws like that send a signal. So you put all these political pieces together. The diplomatic visits, the humanitarian debates, those cautious U.S.-China talks, specific military aid, domestic reforms. It gives you this complex but really vital snapshot of global relations on just this one day, like a global temperature check.
Okay, let's shift from politics to the economy then. The markets, finance. What's the pulse there on June 11th?
Well, overall, markets are up slightly, but cautiously.
Cautiously. Why the caution even with gains?
It really loops back to what we just talked about, those geopolitical things, especially the U.S.-China talks, but also just the wider global situation.
Yeah.
Markets hate uncertainty, right?
Right.
So even if some economic signs are good, those high-level talks mean investors are kind of in a wait-and-see mode.
Makes sense. Geopolitics casting an economic shadow. But amidst the caution, there are bright spots.
Oh, definitely. India's economy, for instance, their Q1 2025 GDP growth got revised up to 7.5%. That's a big number.
Wow, 7.5%. What's driving that?
Strong manufacturing and services, apparently. In the current global picture, 7.5% growth for a major economy like India really signals some powerful internal momentum.
Yeah, that's significant.
Contrast that, though, with the energy markets. OPEC Plus is keeping oil production levels steady.
Holding pattern. Why?
The context given is mixed signals on global demand. So it sounds like the big oil producers are hesitant, maybe they see demand softening, or they're just trying to keep prices stable with all the uncertainty.
A careful balancing act there?
Seems like it. And looking east, Japan's tech exports are surging. That's boosting their trade surplus.
Ah, so continued demand for Japanese tech. That's important for their economy.
Exactly. It shows where their strength lies in global trade.
Yeah.
And we also see trends in where big money is going. The World Bank approved funding for renewable energy in Southeast Asia.
So investment flowing towards green projects.
Yeah, and specifically in that region. It seems like part of a bigger trend, global finance backing sustainable development, the energy transition, especially in growth areas.
Okay, so if you layer all that economic news, cautious markets, strong growth spots like India, strategic energy moves, green investments, you get a picture of the economic landscape. Resilience, caution, future bets, all mixed together.
Definitely. Now let's talk tech, always moving fast. What jumps out from the June 11th briefing?
Well, Apple announced a major update for its AR headset. Better battery, more immersive experience.
Right, so they're clearly still pushing hard in that space, refining it,
Yeah.
trying to make AR more practical, more appealing for everyday use maybe?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And then there's AI, but with a really interesting social angle. Google's AI lab released a new language model.
Okay, what's special about it?
Its focus is improving translation accuracy specifically for indigenous languages.
No, that's actually really important. It's not the usual AI hype, is it? It shows how AI can be used for things like preserving culture, improving access.
Exactly, a really valuable application. Meanwhile, up in space, India's ISRO is prepping for its first crewed mission.
Ah, yes, Gaganyaan, targeting late 2026.
That's the plan mentioned. It's a huge step, putting India more firmly on the map for human spaceflight.
The small club, slowly getting bigger. And back on Earth, green tech infrastructure is expanding. Tesla's putting more EV charging stations across India.
Partnering with local energy providers, too, that's key, isn't it? You can't just sell the cars, you need the charging network.
Absolutely. Seeing a major player build that out in a huge market like India suggests the EV transition is really picking up steam there.
It shows that whole system needs to change. But there's a downside in tech, too.
Yeah, cybersecurity. Firms are reporting a rise in attacks, and they specifically mention healthcare and financial sectors being hit hard globally.
Oof, those are critical. Why them in particular?
Well, healthcare has incredibly sensitive data, and disrupting it can be life-threatening. Finance obviously has money, and disrupting it causes huge economic cripples.
So it's an ongoing battle, really.
An escalating digital arms race, yeah. Tech innovation needs matching security innovation. So the tech picture for the day is, well, it's everything. Consumer gadgets, AI for good, space travel, green infrastructure, and serious security threats. Progress and problems side by side.
Okay, from code and circuits to courts and fields. Let's talk sports. Big things happening there on June 11th, too.
Absolutely, a major final. India versus South Africa in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. The briefing says anticipation is massive. A historic match.
Yeah, T20 finals always have that buzz. The culmination of a big tournament, top teams, huge global audience.
And speaking of global, the NBA draft just wrapped up. Apparently, several international players win in the first round.
That feels like a constant trend now, doesn't it? Basketball talent is truly global.
It really is. Shows how scouting and development have spread. Elsewhere, the French Open champions got their trophies in Paris, end of a Grand Slam.
Clay court season wrapped up. And it's not just the huge events, right? India's women's hockey team is mentioned, too.
Yeah, continuing a strong run in the FIH Pro League, it highlights sustained performance in another major sport for India.
Good to see success across different fields. And looking ahead,
Preparations for the Paris 2024 Olympics are in full swing, finalizing athlete housing, security protocols. You get a sense of the massive logistics involved.
just immense. So yeah, the sports snapshot shows big finals, global talent flow, and the quiet, essential prep work for the biggest events of all.
Now let's shift to entertainment and culture. What's making waves?
Well, one name dominates, Taylor Swift, adding more dates to her Reputation, Taylor's version,
Right.
because of overwhelming demand.
Overwhelming demand. That says it all, doesn't it? Her global reach is just incredible. A real economic force, too.
Truly. And in K-pop, collaboration news. BLACKPINK's Lisa is releasing a single with international artists this summer.
Ah, interesting. More of that cross-genre, cross-border collaboration we're seeing. Reaching new audiences, creating new sounds.
Yeah, redefining pop music. The film world also had a moment, a big sci-fi blockbuster premiere in Hollywood, described as star-studded.
The classic Hollywood spectacle, still a big part of global culture.
But it's not all blockbusters. Cultural festivals are tackling big issues. India's Jaipur Literature Festival featured talks on climate change and digital innovation.
That's fascinating, using literary events as platforms for these crucial conversations.
Right, connecting culture to global challenges. And in theater, London's West End launched a new musical celebrating multiculturalism and inclusion.
So theater reflecting social values, telling diverse stories.
Exactly. So the cultural scene on this day runs the gamut: huge pop tours, Hollywood premieres, thoughtful festivals, inclusive theater. Culture as entertainment, but also as a mirror and a forum.
Okay, let's turn to the environment and science. Some really critical stuff here.
Definitely. A global climate summit kicked off in Berlin. What's coming out of that?
Early signs point to countries pledging faster emissions cuts and more green investment. These summits are vital, even if pledges are just the start.
Sets the direction, the ambition, but there's also some hopeful environmental news.
Yes, scientists reported new findings on coral reef recovery in parts of the Great Barrier Reef. It doesn't solve everything, but signs of resilience offer hope, you know, motivation for conservation.
That's great to hear. And in space science.
NASA's Artemis III mission, aiming for the moon return, completed a successful test of its lunar lander systems, a key step forward.
Step by step back to the moon. And back on Earth, national efforts.
India announced a big nationwide campaign to boost EV adoption, cut pollution. Ties back to that Tesla infrastructure news, right? A government push for cleaner transport.
Shows that policy angle supporting the tech shift.
Exactly. And in Africa, Kenya's reforestation efforts are really impressive. Over 50 million trees planted just since the start of the year.
Wow, that's tangible action against deforestation.
It really is. So the environment and science picture. High-level policy talks, glimmers of ecological hope, ambitious space goals, national green campaigns, and massive on-the-ground conservation. Policy, science, action.
Finally, let's zoom in on some individual and community stories, the human impact stuff.
Yeah, these are often powerful, like an Indian entrepreneur launching a startup for affordable clean energy in rural areas.
That's fantastic. Using business for social good, addressing energy access directly.
Exactly, grassroots innovation. We also see recognition for tough jobs. Canadian firefighters commended for battling wildfires. Their dedication in facing worse fire seasons is incredible.
Absolutely vital work. And recognition for activists, too.
Yes, a Brazilian environmental activist getting international recognition for Amazon conservation work. Protecting the Amazon is globally crucial, and these activists are on the front lines.
Often facing real risks, it's important their work is seen.
Definitely. And urban initiatives, too. Germany's Green Cities Initiative is expanding more green spaces, promoting sustainability in cities.
Why are green cities becoming such a focus?
Well, cities are huge resource users and emitters, but they're also where innovation happens. Greener cities mean better air, less heat, better well-being for millions. It's key to national climate plans now.
Makes sense. And education innovation.
A Kenyan teacher's digital learning program is hitting new milestones, improving access to education, especially where it's traditionally limited.
Amazing. Individual initiative plus tech breaking down barriers.
But these stories, the entrepreneur, firefighters, activists, city planners, teachers, they remind us that alongside the big global headlines, real impact comes from people on the ground, solving problems, improving lives.
It's a great reminder.
We've covered a huge amount of ground today, really, all from that snapshot of June 11th. Politics, economy, tech, sports, culture, environment, and those vital human stories.
So you've just had a pretty concentrated look at the forces shaping that particular day in 2025, pulling insights straight from the updates.
And maybe something for you to think about as you process all this. We heard about climate pledges, trade talks, anti-corruption laws, AR advances, conservation efforts, education programs. They're all responses, aren't they? Responses to complex, linked global challenges. They happen at different scales, using different strategies of policy, tech, individual action.
Right.
So what does seeing all these different responses, all happening on the same day, tell you about where the world might be heading? Is it progress? Is it struggle? Maybe it's both at the same time.
Which of these stories we touched on resonated most with you? Maybe sparked some curiosity to learn more. Something to consider. Stay curious and stay informed.